afternoon. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm Natalie Slachina, our Associate Deputy Director here at the Houston Center for Contemporary Craft. Thank you for braving the cold, and for those of you who we rescheduled this talk from last week, so thank you for being our diehard fans who made sure to come back up. We have 3 amazing residents today who are all finishing their residency at the end of February. So we're so excited to hear more about their practice. And then you still have the month of February to come back and check out their studios. So up first is Grace Sachi Troxell, who's a clay artist. She's based in Waterville, North Carolina. New York, sorry. Troxell comes from a lineage of Japanese and Pennsylvania Dutch ceramicists. She received a BA in studio art from Skidmore College and a postgraduate certificate in painting from the Glasgow School of Art and an MFA from Cornell University. She's been an artist-in-resident at Skowhegan, Sharp Bullet Lentas, McDowell, Yados Sculpture Space, the studios at Mass Mocha, Woodstock Bardcliffe, Willapa Bay Air, the Pottery Workshop in China, Dumfries House, Scotland, and the Rothko Center in Latvia. Grace's work has been exhibited in New York City at Swivel Gallery, Hassa Flatow, Wave Hill, Bridget Donahue and Jack Hanley, 125 Maiden Lane, and the Allison Bradley projects. She's also been included in exhibitions at the Johnson Museum of Art, Neighbors, Strain Gallery, Cohen Gallery, Hay Contemporary, Said Shows, and Harnett Gallery, among others. Grace is currently an assistant professor of ceramics at the University of Florida in Gainesville. Grace, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Thank you, everyone, for coming. How fun. I'm just going to read my artist statement to give you an overview and then go through different projects. Okay. I think about vegetables a lot. I love them. I worship them. I want them to heal me. I want them to heal others. I worry they've lost their taste, their individuality, what makes them special. They are conforming. We are making them conform. In The Gleaners and I, Agnes Varda sorts through a pile of castaway potatoes. She zooms in on a potato that looks like a heart. She gets me. In Yuriko Saito's book, Aesthetics of the Familiar, Everyday Life and World Making, Saito proposes embracing more misshapen or ugly vegetables. Approximately a third of vegetables are discarded before they arrive at supermarkets for aesthetic rather than nutritional reasons. By casting my family in vegetables, I'm making a speculative archaeology trying to discover and reimagine the future. I find myself drawn to Paul Tech's technological reliquaries, Tetsumi Kudo's cages, Adrienne Villar-Rojas's Today We Reboot the Planet, and Alina Sapochnikov's bodily amalgamations, especially her belly cushions. In my recent exhibition, This Pot is Made of Earth and When It Breaks, My Father Laughs, vessels made of pit-fired casts of family members, a long-lost aunt, my mother, my father, myself, vegetables from my garden intermingle and are contained in steel armatures. This steel becomes at once fruit basket, cage, line drawing, and a porous sac within a larger intestinal system. In Viscous Porosity and Material Feminisms, Nancy Tuana questions the boundary between our flesh and the flesh of the world. In my work, glaze and stains are both painterly and toxic. They oscillate between bodily organs, toxic chemicals, and charring via pit firing to collapse the internal and external. In Yoko Ogawa's The Memory Police, objects, ideas, and ultimately bodies disappear. By casting and reusing molds, I am insisting on the presence of people and food, objects that should nourish but do not. In Arts of Living on a Damaged Planet, Anna Singh writes, without intestinal bacteria, we cannot digest our food. Industrial chemicals weave their way through our food webs. Nuclear products sicken us not just through our human cells, but also through our bacteria. In my installation, Tectonic Turnips at 125 Maiden Lane in New York City, through art and buildings, the technological and ancient merge as scanned bodies and vegetables act as a template for a CNC model for new ceramic forms. The shapes from the CNC model have many layers and become the templates for press molds. These ceramic tiles climb through scaffolding and scale the marble wall of the building, interposing a sense of one's own digestive system with the building as an uninhabitable body. So this is Jingzhen, China, which is the porcelain capital of the world. And I did a residency there in 2017 with my dad, who is also a ceramicist. And as Natalie mentioned in my bio, I studied painting. I did set design. I was really trying to find what it was that I wanted to kind of make. And I grew up with clay, and I ended up coming back to clay as an adult and making a lot of slip cast objects to sell with my dad. And so we went to Jingzhen, and I was really kind of floored by how communal making was there, that you would have all of these different craftspeople that would make specific parts of the piece. And so there would just be like so many molds in front of you, and then at night there'd just be like piles of disposable molds. And it really got me thinking a lot about mold making and how I could use that within my own practice. And then I also, because I didn't study ceramics in school, but I had my dad, who was a ceramicist, I decided if I was going to do ceramics, I was really going to kind of try to learn as much as I could. So I decided before going to graduate school that I wanted to make a kiln in my parents' backyard, which they very nicely let me do. And so on the right is my dad, and then his dear friend, James Lard, who's also a ceramicist. And this is a kiln that they built with their students at the Harrisburg Area Community College in Pennsylvania, where I grew up. And then this is the kiln that I built, much smaller. But yes, so building the kiln was really this kind of amazing way to make a tool and then learn about firing and the ritual around firing. I had really grown up with kilns that they would fire in the fall and the spring and have these like potlucks, and it felt just kind of like magical ritual that you would see something change. And so building the kiln was also like a really great lesson in building and making something that had a sense of form and that could stand and withhold fire, and it really felt like this kind of like sculptural experiment before I went to graduate school. And then I grew up in Pennsylvania, and I was really interested in kind of post-industrial spaces and materials, and ended up getting all of this steel rod and going to BOCES and learning how to weld and getting a welding certificate course that was really more for people that wanted to work on bridges, wanted to work in construction, and it was a way for me to learn how to build armatures. And so I was really interested in trying to fire clay and steel together and letting the clay like really deform. And so this is a piece from that, and it's called No More Chicken Nuggets, Mommy. As I mentioned, I love vegetables, and I'm really interested in kind of like processed foods and these kind of like collapsing of architecture. I also am really interested in fashion, and so I was thinking about kind of Issey Miyake bell-bottom pants at the bottom, or Brancusi's columns, endless column. And then for scale, here's a picture of me next to the piece. I was also playing a lot with paper clay, trying to bring line into ceramics. My background was in painting and drawing, so really thinking a lot about that. Here's some carrots. The activity of metabolization, whereby the outside and inside mingle and recombine, renders more plausible the idea of vital materiality. It reveals the swarm of activity subsisting below and within formed bodies and recalcitrant things, a vitality obscured by our own conceptual habit of dividing the world into inorganic matter and organic life. That's from Vibrant Matter by Jane Bennett. So I'm really interested in many different types of ceramics. One of them would be prehistoric Japanese ceramics. This is from the Jomon period, and this piece is maybe about 3 inches, and it was at the Johnson Museum. I went to graduate school at Cornell, and so I would kind of visit this piece often and think about it. And so I was thinking about more like fertility figures and the relationship between clay and steel, thinking about clay as a type of body related to my own body, and steel thinking about, kind of IUDs and things like this going into a body. And then using clay as a way to also think about different kind of like bodily systems and digestion. And so this was this exhibition, Their Planet Exploded, at the Johnson Museum. Around this time was also the pandemic, and so thinking a lot about kind of failures of food systems, and I remember going with my parents to pick up food for them and being given these trays that were like holding apples and things like that. And so I started casting those in clay, and then having this intermingling of real kind of decomposing vegetables with cast vegetables. And I started making kind of small amalgamations, thinking a lot about George Orr's clay babies and how you can kind of like collapse clay, but I wanted to do that with vegetables. I'm also very interested in different kind of firing techniques, and so these are different pit firings that I was doing, thinking a lot about like cooking and its relationship to food. And so playing with different organic materials. I also teach, and this is a way to have an alternative firing with students. And so This is Toshiko Takezu's work, who I love very much. And I really love her kind of gestural mark making. And the school where my dad taught, they had a display case of her work in the hallway that I would visit often as a child. And so I think she was kind of always in my mind. These pieces are a group called Potato Seance. I was reading Ursula Le Guin's The Carrier Bag Theory of Fiction and thinking about vessels as kind of this ultimate heroic hero in culture. And but I also was thinking a lot about, once again, like the vessel as a body. But I was making a lot of juice at the time, and so I took the pulp from the juice and made kind of like a covering, and thinking about, if you're dealing with like inflammation, can you also kind of try to soothe the sculpture and have these kind of goofy relationships together. And so this is the interior of some of my sculptures. I was welding the kind of interior frames of them, and they have these like really goofy little arms so that I could lift them up into the kiln. And then, so it would be the kind of interior steel with chicken wire. And then I made this no-shrink clay that has a lot of grog in it. And grog is when clay has been fired and then kind of made very small and put back in the material so it holds, it will shrink less. And here are some raku firings as well. So just quickly kind of going through these pieces. And really, I guess with the pieces, wanting them to feel like they had multiple ages to them, that it felt like at once it could be like an infant or someone who is at an older age, and thinking about like oozing and defecation with ceramics. And then, as I mentioned, I'm really interested in kilns and different firing techniques, and so I wanted the kind of centerpiece of the exhibition to feel more like a kiln or a chimney. And so that piece didn't move, but the 3 on dollies around it did. And 2 of my students would come in every day, and they would move the pieces around. So it almost felt like it was this kind of garden. And then outside the museum, there was a Japanese garden, and so I put pieces in there as well. How am I doing for time? So I was thinking a lot about making these kind of vegetal bodies and amalgamations, and then I realized I should probably actually bring real bodies into the work. I was also, at the time, thinking about my parents aging and wanting to capture parts of them. And so my mom let me cast her, and I ended up making these pieces based on this poem by Kumiko Han called My Other's Body. So thinking about my mother's body. And it was in a show at Jaden Gallery with Rochelle Dang and Landon Newton. And so as I was thinking about adding people into my work, I was thinking a lot about kind of portraiture. My bachelor's degree was pretty traditional. I did a lot of figure painting, and it always seemed kind of like a solitary figure. And so I was thinking about portraiture in a sense of trying to bring many different people in my life into the pieces and think about that as a portrait. And so I decided to cast different family members. And so this is my grandmother, and then my dad and his sister, and this is the first day that they met. As adults, my dad was born in Japan, and then his family came over to America, and his sister was born in America, and then she was given up for adoption and was raised by another family. And I never knew about her growing up. And then I was working at a theater, and the set designer asked me if my mom's name was Linda. And I came home, and I was like, yeah, this man thought like my mother was Japanese American, which is pretty rare. And my dad was like, oh, it might be my sister. And so this was this like pretty shocking moment. And and so I called the high school they went to and was like really trying to find her, and I didn't. But when she turned 60, her mother gave her these letters that my dad sent as a child, and they were, just like Merry Christmas or Happy Birthday, and very sweet. And so she got them when she was 60, and it made her want to look for him again. And my brother and I had just made my dad a website, and so it was very easy to find him. It was really interesting. We lived 20 minutes away from each other. they met like at the Macaroni Grill in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And so there were all these like very interesting similarities and huge differences between how they were raised. My dad, was raised more with his mother. And so it was really interesting thinking about, being from, my mom is obviously white, and thinking about this, like a diasporic family and these different experiences within it. And so my aunt, I asked her if I could cast her face, and I was thinking also about kind of death masks and wanting, like when we met, she was like, oh, I really want to see your face because I don't know women I'm related to besides my daughters. And so also thinking about my grandmother. And so this is my Auntie Linda being cast. What a good sport. And so starting to put different faces and bodies within these kind of more monstrous sculptures, I guess, and really thinking about hybridity. And then, so these are, I guess, more like the three graces or something like this, and thinking about using steel as a way to really draw in space, being able to see the armature more, but also playing with ideas of pedestal and object and making these kind of vessels that are very, that can't be used in any way. And then this is a piece that, once again, using those trays for fruits. And it's the template is from the shape that I cut out to make the kiln. Okay, I took up a lot of time. Okay, so this is a show. I'm gonna go very quickly now. That's a Louise Bourgeois sculpture that I love. This was an exhibition at Wave Hill in New York, and I was really thinking about how to play with like the interior and the exterior space. It's a former greenhouse. And so making these more kind of like modular sculptures that have a sense of the interior and the exterior with the steel and the ceramic together. I'm going to just go through these quickly. This was a show called 100 Hooks where I made a zucchini hook. And then, playing with, I love histories, and Ruth Duckworth has this pot called Mama Pot, and I was thinking about that when I was making this piece. Some other firing techniques, gas kilns, and then this is the exhibition I mentioned in the beginning that was in a facade of a building. It was a very different way for me to work. I scanned pieces that I had and then put them in Rhino and then cut them out in the CNC machine and made molds out of them and had to propose kind of what the piece was going to look like. Okay. And then very quickly, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. This was an exhibition. This is a piece by Samuel Troxell. So I also come from Pennsylvania Dutch potters. And it's called This Pot is Made of Earth, and when it breaks, the potter laughs. And so I remade that to This Pot is Made of Earth, and when it breaks, my father laughs. And was making these kind of, thinking about like hanging sculptures as well as more grounded pieces. And so playing with steel in this other way as kind of a carrier or a basket or something like that. And playing with pit firing to get the charring and thinking about these things. So I will end there. Thank you. So the kiln that I showed in the very beginning, I fired them in the wooden kiln, in the wood-fired kiln, the catenary arch kiln. But I made a special clay that doesn't shrink very much, and so it doesn't shrink on the steel. If you fire it too high, then the steel will start to collapse. So it's like really kind of knowing that line of how high you can go. But yeah, I made the kiln because I was like, no one's going to let me do this in their kiln. If you're interested, I mean, there's like nichrome wire, which is a smaller wire that you can fire with ceramics. and people will let you do that in spaces. Yeah.
So is that the non-truthful thing? Is that what you tend to work with generally, or you're all over?
I'm all over the place. No, it depends. I mean, it's just if I'm doing things with steel, because it's like a very groggy, intense clay, so it doesn't get as much like detail in it, and it really depends on what space I'm working in at the moment. Of like, will I have, like when I did the sculptures that have the kind of taller steel pedestals to them, it's because I didn't have a big kiln there, so it's like I still want to have steel integrated in this, but I'm not going to fire over the steel, and so lots of times it's like, what are the materials around that I can fire in? Yes.
Can you describe what we would see if we went in your studio right now?
Yeah, so it's very different. So in my studio right now, I'm making a large-scale tile piece out of clay, and I'm using a lot of ears. So I mentioned my dad many times, and he passed away recently. And so I made a death mask, and I also cast his ears, and I'm making his weight in ears. And then he was a ceramicist and a printmaker, and he had prints that he made when his mother passed away. And so I blew up the composition from that print, and I'm using it as the template. So I have this like huge drawing of the tiles of how they should be, and then on the ground I'm making it so that I can kind of see how it's working together. Yeah, lots of ears.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Layla, that's a great segue to that their studios will be open after the talk so that you can go in and see these works in person and continue any conversations or questions as well. So while I'm getting our next artist up, I'll have Lorena come up. Let's see, let me start this. Okay, and I know the pointer's here if you want it. So Lorena Morales is a multidisciplinary visual artist currently based here in Houston. Born in Venezuela, Lorena holds a certificate in painting and sculpture from the LaSalle School of Art at the Museum of Fine Arts, Houston, as well as a degree in business administration. She completed the Block program at the LaSalle School of Art and was awarded a grant by the Carlos Cruz Diaz Foundation and the LaSalle School of Art for participating in an advanced seminar in contemporary art. She was one of the selected 2021-2022 artists in residence at the Lair Artist Residency in Paris, France, and in 2023 she joined the Hybrid Artist Residency in Mar Alta at Puntos Arenos in Uruguay. Her work has been exhibited extensively in art galleries, nonprofit organizations, and art museums in Texas, as well as nationally and internationally in Venezuela, France, Uruguay, and Germany. Her work is held in the permanent collection at the George R. Brown Convention Center here in Houston, the City of Houston Civic Art Collection, the George Bush Intercontinental Airport, and many other private and public collections. Most recently, she was selected as the first place winner of the Whitney Wagner Foundation Fall 2024 Creative Grant. Lorena, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Here. Okay. My work relates to home and how a perception of home changes depending on the circumstances. I am interested in the relationship between the individual and collective experiences, challenging the viewer to further discover the feelings surrounding home. So my first series of works after I graduated from LaSalle were mostly paintings on plexiglass because I am putting two samples there of colonial houses, the way they look in Maracaibo, Venezuela. So my colors in my works, they are coming from there. Maracaibo is a hot and really colorful city, not only on the architecture, but also the people. So that is something that I wanted to bring in my work. So my first works were, as I said, in plexiglass, and the shapes on the drawings, there were the shapes of the colonial homes back in Venezuela. And then, as you see, I have interest in the relationship between the light and the shadows as the way I see like it's happening back in Venezuela. Then, starting 2014, the drawings start disappearing, and I was more focused on the colors, the lines, the movement, and the relationship between the light and shadows. So they were going more to an abstractions, more minimalist, and at that moment I was talking about my home here in Houston. So the last works I was doing in 2018, 2019 were this series that they are called chromolites. Here they are over stainless steel plates, but then I free them, and then I start installing just the bars directly to the walls. With those, I was talking about the present moment, my home here in Houston. So you can see on those, when you see side by side, the color disappears. You only can see the color when you see it in a frontal way. So talking about past and future, they are not any more important. What is important is the present moment. And I also, for me, the creative process is as important as the final product. So I allow myself to explore with different materials because I am talking about home. Home is a multidimensional concept. I cannot talk about home just using one specific materials. And because my work is a reflection of my home, so usually all these are a response of what I am having or experience in that moment. So to talk about something specific, then I choose the specific material. In 2019, I have the wonderful opportunity to move to a small town in Angola called Soyo, in the mouth of the Congo River. Of course, there I have limited materials. I was able just to work with what I could fit on my suitcase, that were papers and markers. So these two are views I got from my balcony of the Congo River. So I have the opportunity to see the current of the Congo River and the change of colors of the Congo River daily. So I start producing a series of works, of drawings, inspired on those. As you can see here, the shape of the house came back as well as the drawing. I fall in love again of drawing, so then from there I haven't stopped doing drawings. And then COVID happened, and then in 2020 we were sent back to Houston. And then, as you can see, the shape of the house changed to the more generic shape of when we talk about home. It's because during the pandemic, made me realize that my perception of home didn't change just because I moved from one place to another one. Changed because the circumstances we were living at that moment. So the drawings that they are on these are works on paper. They are multi-layer collage papers. I paint the papers, and the drawings are a continuation of the line drawings I was doing back in Angola. Those series, they are called Topographies of a Place to Know, that the ones I start in Angola. But then here, I keep working during the pandemic with the same series, because then my home here in Houston became a place to know. We were 7 people confined in a home, and the dynamic changed. So that made me, okay, I am knowing this new home here. So also during the pandemic, I started working what I was having at home, the material I have at home. So I did some mock-ups of houses with paper. And then I did some works like that one. These are 6-pack rings, and these are drawing with Sharpie markers on 6-pack rings. So I did this one. This was installed at the Holocaust Museum on exhibition we have. And these are some views of the sculptures that came after, inspired from that paper mock-ups I did during the pandemic. So then as soon as I was able to get back to my studio, I started translating those mock-ups to plexiglass paintings, sculptures, and then keep working with papers. During the pandemic also, I started working on larger sculptures. This one is the companion of the first one I showed before. This is also made with 6-pack rings and Sharpie markers. And inside the house, this circle says, I am here. I was talking about confinement, telling that, okay, I am here, and nobody can enter, I cannot exit. Then in 2024, I have the opportunity to have a survey exhibition of my work at the Bible Art Museum. So for that exhibition, I create also new installations. And the one in the center, this one is a very special installation. I did it honoring my mother and my mother-in-law. By that time, I start questioning again, where is home? And most when my mother-in-law passed in September 2022, and then here in Houston, and then my mother passed in June 2023 in Venezuela. So then losing both my moms that for me were the representation of home, it's like made me question again, where is home now when they are not here anymore? So then, but to do this installation, I learned how to hand embroider. So all the letterings you see here are hand embroidery. And the print is on fabric, and it's a print of a drawing I did that I also translate to that. The picture here of the sky is a photograph I took of the sky in Maracaibo. So talking about here, there, and also everywhere. Anywhere also. This is on a curtain I also embroidered there. And this is another installation I did with lighting panels, and then has a mirror that goes around. That was also honoring my mother. And it says, you left without a warning, without giving us the last hug. So it's going around, and then has, well, here in the picture you can see, but this has like a small hanging house, also made with the lighting panels that they are in the top. At the same time, I started also developing more collage using the papers and some fabrics I brought from Africa. And this is the work I am doing right now, parallel to my community engagement work. That is that also after the pandemic, I became more interested also in connecting with people. So at the same time, I have been doing this ongoing project. This is a 8x4 wooden house with wheels that I take to different festivals. And I paint it depending of the festival, and then I invite people to help me finish it by drawing or writing something related to home. The another pictures there are from an activity we have at the Museum of Fine Art Houston for the Art Encounter programs. For that one, I invite people to create little houses on paper and draw or write something, a joyful memory related to home. So from there, we are coming to here. This is the project I am doing right now during the residency. This is the rendering I present of the project. This is like the first wall of the project because, of course, I have limitation in the space, so I am working by walls. There will be 5 walls in total. I already have it almost done. And here are some pictures of the people participating in the project. I invite everyone to come, to sit, to relax. I will give everyone a container with beads and wire, and you just need to thread the beads. And while you do that, I invite you to reflect about the meaning of home. What is home for you? And when they finish, I ask to share a joyful memory related to that concept of home. So so far I have over 350 shared joyful memories. This will be the soundscape that you will listen when you enter. This will be a 10 by 10 by 10 house that you will be able to enter that space. The beats of the house are diet with organic ingredients, spices that you can find at home, like coffee, hibiscus, turmeric, indigo, elderberry. I am using that as a bring to the colors of the house. So my idea is to create a multisensorial installation, and so far the taste just happened organically. Usually I have a bucket of chocolates in my studio, and then people start, doing the threads and then getting the chocolate. I have the taste covered. But also we are having the installation will be in the garden, installed here in March. So we are having an opening on March 23rd, 3 to 5. Please save the date. And during that time, I invite a chef to create finger food using the same spices and ingredients I used to dye the beads. So then we can connect also the taste, that is the missing aspect to the multisensorial installation. So thank you very much for coming.
What days are you in your studio?
Usually I am in my studio Wednesdays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you want to come another day, just contact me through Instagram, or just grab one of my business cards and contact me. I will be here for you. Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions for Lorena?
How did you prepare all the beads? Did you just do vats and vats of dye? And where did the beads come from?
Usually, because I will use about 150,000 beads. I need to look for a place that I can get it easily. What place? Amazon. That is the perfect place to get the other materials. So I was thinking to have light beads and beads that can absorb easily the diet. So these are pine beads that they are not really light, and they are like almost white. So they absorb really, really great all the dyes I have. The dye process, I put them like in a pot, and I do like this, kind of like with water, and they spend like there, like for example, if I do like the coffee, I prepare like a large pot of coffee, and then I pour the beads there, and they stay there like 24, 48 hours, just bathing there. And then they go to the next process, that is the drying process, that also I have a setup with a fan and everything to keep them dry. Yeah. Like this. It's a long process. And right at this point, I am having a really close like inventory of all the colors I have, all the beads I have, to know which ones I need to dye which colors specifically, because I am almost finishing the project, and to be focused on more, to control better the colors I will need and the amount of beads I will need. Yeah.
What's the length of the project? When did you start?
This project, I started here at I started 2 years ago with this crazy idea of having a multisensorial installation.
And physical making.
The physical making start here September 1st. The first day I moved here for the installation, for the residency, I was starting doing the tape shape to start doing the installation. So far it has been 5 months. Yeah. Of course, right now I am speeding the process because it's one more month left. But yes, it's almost there.
What structure are you going to build in the garden in order to suspend it?
I have somebody, we design a custom-made wooden structure to have inside in the garden, yes. Yes, will be kind of a pergola-like structure, but will be, higher, like taller and wider, yeah. Yeah.
Do you already have a place where it could live after it's taken down here?
Not yet, but I am open. Two options, yes. Yes, because I would love to have this project keep going. The experience with this project has been wonderful. Like I told Natalie, has been beyond of what I was expecting. The community here is wonderful. I get people here from everywhere. So the memories I have recorded, it's wonderful because it's there. And then when you listen, then you figure like the many meanings of home for the many people. It's like, that is the reason for me, it's like I do everything, all my work is multidimensional because home is multidimensional. So that is and this is like, okay, this is what is it like, that is home. No.
Thank you, Lorena.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lorena. Let's see. And last but certainly not least is Roslyn Dupré. Roslyn, I can see it. Roslyn is a bicolor and mixed media artist who blends humble materials and craft into fashion sewn papers and woven constructions. A former geoscientist and editor, she is a maker of objects, an observer, and a commenter. Roslyn earned her MFA in the sculpture department from the Catherine M. McGovern School of Art at the University of Houston. Recent solo shows include the daily devotional at Lawndale across the street from us, which was accompanied by Rachel Balin's thoughtful essay, and On Us at LRT Gallery. Her work is also recently included in the Texas Biennial's 2024 The Last Sky, Thermals and Thresholds at Sawyer Yards, and is on display at the Hobby Airport as part of the City of Houston Civic Art Collection. Roslyn, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, I'm Roslyn, and I consider myself a sculptor and bricoleur, which is a way of approaching one's art making and studio practice where the materials and processes matter most in what I'm doing and what I'm pursuing. So you'll see that my work kind of fluctuates between different techniques, different materials. It's usually that I'm grabbing whatever's close at hand, and then I'm grabbing one of the techniques I've learned from my grandmother, who was a modiste and really loved to sew and crochet, or my aunts who knitted and made elaborate frogs for everyone's coats, or grandfather who was a contractor and a painter. And so I will just grab whatever's at hand, and then usually my projects are defined by the amount of materials that are available. So if I'm given a load of denim from several people in the family, the project goes until the denim's used up. Oftentimes my work is confronting themes of the Southern Gothic. So what's the Southern Gothic? It's those stories that were told and written or sung about or referred to in poetry by authors like Tennessee Williams, William Faulkner. I'm especially influenced by the poetry of Natasha Trethewey. These sort of arch stories that have to deal with the horrors of colonialism in the American South, but also this sort of mysticism that pervades in this like darkly swampy human air that we all survive in, right? And we all have to live with. In that process of dealing with those stories or those themes, what I'm often doing is trying to distill like a feeling or an ambiance, or what Annie Albers would describe in her weavings as matière. So sort of this just feeling of a piece, an ambiance. This is the origins of my universe. It's a piece that I made several years ago, and it's kind of a touchstone piece for me because it really speaks to a lot of those elements that are key to my process. The hand sewing. This is a bowl constructed out of denim, reinforced with doll needles so that it holds its shape. Suspended and balanced on this wooden structure. It's a small piece, about 20 by 27. There's rubber at the bottom, and it kind of, to me, suggests that kind of tension between what the men in the family did, what the women in the family did, and like gives me that permission to just grab whatever and do whatever I like. It fits in the theme of what I'm doing here at Craft, in that I'm still doing these like slow explorations and experiments in my practice. A lot of what I'm building are tools that don't really work, that don't really have a purpose. This is my travois for family. It's an homage to my grandparents in that the pillows that form the netting of the piece are a bar graph of sorts that represent time, and the coloring on it represents the amount of time I had with each one of those people as a physical being in my life versus as the spirit, the wonderful influence that I carry with me. The net is suspended on a frame made of discarded tools. These are from shovels and axes and hoes. And it's assembled as a travois, which is a drag cart, a kind of improvised sled, if you will, that you can kind of pick up and pull a load behind you. It's unfunctional because these knots are fragile. They wouldn't hold anything. But I think it represents what I'm getting after. This is another tool, a garrote that I made. A garrote is, one of those things you see in a James Bond movie. When someone goes up behind someone else, it's a weapon for choking out a person. And this was a response that I made to a political event in 2020. And I was angry and feeling impotent and went out and took a walk. And just like a child, I don't know, of the 70s growing up in the South, where we were often told by the adults, time to get out, go outside and stay outside for a while and play. And you'd end up playing with the acorns or the branches underneath a tree instead of your toys or your scooter. In the impotence of what I felt in this, during that walk for what was going on in our country, I grabbed some Spanish moss and made a rope out of it, and twigs from pine and oak. Thoughts and prayers are dysfunctional field stretchers that have been repurposed and resized. The tallest is 12 feet by 12 inches. But this was created after the Uvalde shootings. Useless. This is my La Vue Catin. It's a dysfunctional puppet. She's a small thing carved from cypress. La Vue Catin in Louisiana French. I'm from Louisiana, I'm from New Orleans. It means the old doll. In French, I believe it means the old whore. And she's just a functional, sad little guy. Dysfunctional, sad little girl. This is my laboring woman, a tri-weave on a non-functional loom. A shaggy piece, again made out of denims. Once people found out I was using denim, I was getting a lot of denim. And it comes back again and again in my work, mainly because because material is so important to me. I like things that are highly specific to individuals in my life. I like things that are highly specific to the places I live or the places I regularly visit. Denim also has that wonderful quality of being a woven fabric that the name itself, denim, means of Nîmes, France. It's from there. The color, the indigo color, is really representational of the American South and the plantations and our trade in indigo and what we did to have that to build that economy down here. So it's a wonderful, potent material to explore. This is my Texas hopper. Again, another non-functional item. It's a hopper, meaning that this piece at the top rolls and can pick up eggs and dispense eggs as it's going. It makes quite a clatter. These eggs I've made out of paper mache, and it would be ideally used by someone who's wearing shackles. This was created after SB 8, which made assisting anyone who received an abortion in the state of Texas illegal, or actually possibly prosecutable. This is Home St. Louis number 3, another one of the works that I go back to and touch a lot. It's an odd little non-house suspended on shovels. The title Home St. Louis number 3 refers to the cemetery in New Orleans where my family has their crypt. There's many, many generations there's 4 generations buried there. It was this was created thinking about what happened during Katrina with my family. It's also kind of an homage to, the grandparents in this place that has been a home even as I've moved, or even as family has moved. It's one place that the family is. The names are there, the dates are there. I don't know if I will end up there someday, but it's there and I can visit it. And whenever I go home, I'm walking through St. Louis Cemetery number 3, back to the black section of the cemetery, because cemeteries don't get desegregated. So I go back to the black section to visit my grandparents and see their names and touch them. So what happens with a lot of my studio practice, including my studio practice here, is that I tend to have something that's time-based, something that I know I'm waking up every day and doing when I get to the studio. This is Colored Gamp, or What About Friday, which was a project where I was taking books that had traveled with me for many years and existed on my shelf and are aging and falling apart as paperbacks do. And I reworked the book, deleting the entire text and photoshopping the cover, rebinding it to focus on Friday, the Native American servant who, in Daniel Defoe's story, is happy to devote his life to serving Robinson Crusoe. This is Breakfast of Champions, another time-based work, where for a little over a year, every morning I would save my tea bag, clean it, and embroider it with a pertinent word from that day's headlines. There's over 400 tea bags. Sometimes I chose less potent words because I needed a break. Whenever it gets installed as a heartbeat. Usually that responds to the site of its installation. And then I'll tell you about the daily devotional, which is another one of my time-based works that was over at Lawndale last year. It was installed in the staircase. I believe it was their first installment in the staircase. But it was a series of sewn pages where I'm experimenting with the word and with the technique of sewing, creating this kind of arterial flow up the staircase to the object at the top, which is a prie-dieu, or some people would call it, it's like the kneeler on a pew in a Christian church, which is also a play on my last name, Dupré, prie-dieu. Anyway, so what I'm doing here I'll just flip through these. What I'm doing here, these are some of the pages that are framed at as part of that installation. What I'm doing here at Craft is, again, a time-based work where I'm sitting down every day to my loom. My loom hasn't been an integral part of my art practice, but I have done a lot of weavings that have been played an important role in my work, like the Sargasso Sea, this diptych that's on display in my studio right now. But I'm kind of investigating what this tool does for me and where I want it to go. I'm looking at the loom as this object that takes yarn or threads or strings, which have lots of freedom, and then locks them in and reduces the degrees of freedom. And I'm kind of working through what that looks for me. This is an installation of mine called As She Lay Dying. It's fermented Spanish moss, kind of following that thread with the garrote. This is several years later. I've been fermenting it to release the inner fiber from the Spanish moss, and then hand spinning them into these skeins so that they play a role sort of as text on the wall. And this process here at Craft will be looking at those fibers and using those fibers and taking them a little bit further. So thank you. I really appreciate being here, by the way. It's been wonderful.
I'm fascinated by your relationship with literature, history, memory, and I find this thread of like a ritualistic way of approaching the work. It's just a comment that I find it fascinating. It's so, at so many levels, there's this coherence, you know, in the work in general, like the body of work you showed.
Thank you. I feel like I have this overarching theme. It's almost like a research question. You know, from my science background, we tend to approach our work with a particular research question. I would say if I have that in my practice, it's about these themes that have shown up over and over again growing up in the South. And well, what do I want to do with that? What does that look like for me? Like, I've experienced those highs and lows and the ugliness and the beauty of being a resident of this place, being a child of this place. How do I represent that as an object? That's what I think, like when I look at the poetry of Natasha Trethewey, that's what I see, like this really crystalline beauty in the way that she distills her memories or her words. And I hope to accomplish that.